Some horror films leave behind more than unsettling imagery. They leave behind silence, no interviews, no behind-the-scenes footage, no cheerful memories from cast or crew. Just a film, released into the world, and then immediately buried by the very people who created it. In the archives of genre cinema, these titles stand out not because of box office numbers or cult followings, but because of the void that surrounds them. Productions where directors refuse to discuss what happened, actors shut down questions in seconds, and crew members quietly distance themselves as if the project had taken something from them. A few chalked it up to bad experiences. Others called it the worst job of my life, and some never spoke about the film again. What makes these cases even stranger is the absence of documentation. No production photos, no on-set reports, no promotional tours. Nothing that offers a glimpse into how these films were actually made. It's as if each of these movies carries a sealed room inside it, a room only the crew has seen, and one they will never open for anyone else. Tonight, we're unlocking that door. This is a descent into 15 horror films so shrouded in silence, so aggressively forgotten, that the lack of answers becomes more disturbing than anything shown on screen. I'm Fact 1, The Alien Factor, 1978. A regional monster movie shot in Maryland, The Alien Factor is beloved today for its handmade charm, but its creation is shrouded in contradictions and a striking lack of testimony. Director Don Dohler developed a reputation for community-driven filmmaking, yet this particular project seems to be the exception. Most cast and crew members involved have offered little more than brief, neutral comments, and some have refused to discuss the film at all. Behind the scenes, the production reportedly struggled with extreme conditions, freezing temperatures, malfunctioning equipment, and a crew largely composed of inexperienced locals trying to keep pace with the ambitious creature effects. Several people recalled the exhaustion and disorganization of the set, but declined to elaborate further, leaving researchers with fragmented hints rather than cohesive accounts. Anecdotes circulate about long shooting days where cast members performed dangerous stunts without proper safety measures. Others mention emotional strain, communication breakdowns, and sequences that took far longer to complete than anticipated, all pointing toward a production more grueling than its modest appearance suggests. Despite Don Dohler's otherwise detailed archival habits, almost no behind-the-scenes images or notes from The Alien Factor survive. This absence is highly unusual for his work and has fueled speculation that the shoot may have taken a toll that participants chose not to revisit. What remains is a cult classic wrapped in a void, a film cherished by fans, yet quietly disowned by those who endured its making. Fact 2. The Dark Secret of Harvest Home, 1978. This two-part television horror event captivated audiences with its depiction of rural rituals and creeping dread, yet almost no one involved has been willing to revisit it. Despite the miniseries' notoriety and its high-profile cast, there are almost no interviews, no production notes, and no retrospective commentaries. Attempts by journalists to explore the making of the project have been consistently shut down or ignored. Rumors suggest the shoot was far more tense than its polished exterior implies. The rural locations were remote, forcing the cast and crew into long stays where morale reportedly deteriorated. Some insiders described an atmosphere of unease that mirrored the story's themes of isolation and oppressive tradition. Conflicts between the director and producers allegedly led to last-minute changes that frustrated both departments. Even stranger, cast members who enjoyed long careers have rarely acknowledged the miniseries at all, treating it as if it were a forgotten misstep or something better left buried. One actor, when asked about the production decades later, simply replied, "It wasn't a good time," and offered nothing more. No behind-the-scenes footage exists. Promotional material is extremely limited, and the few surviving production photos reveal nothing about the troubled environment hinted at by those close to the project. The Dark Secret of Harvest Home endures not just as a horror classic, but as an unsettling blank spot in the people who made it. Fact 3. The Appointment, 1981. A chilling psychological horror film from the UK. The Appointment feels cursed not because of what appears on screen, but because of the unsettling silence surrounding its creation. Directed by Lindsay C. Vickers, the film weaves a story of premonitions and unseen forces, yet its behind-the-scenes history is even more elusive. After its limited release, the cast and crew effectively vanished from any discussion of the project. Attempts to interview Vickers or the stars in later years resulted in evasive answers or outright refusal. Researchers digging into the film's background found production records that were incomplete, contradictory, or missing entirely. Stories circulated of a tense set, long days, and growing disagreements about the film's tone. Some claim that the shoot's eerie forest locations created a sense of isolation that began affecting the cast's morale. Others whispered about emotional breakdowns and arguments severe enough that crew members walked away mid-production. Unlike most British horror films of the era, The Appointment has no behind-the-scenes photos, no press kit, no promotional interviews, nothing. Even its television broadcast history is spotty, leaving large gaps that deepen the mystery. When a boutique label approached former cast members for a retrospective, every request was declined. The result is a film that feels like a recovered artifact, something that slipped through cracks no one has bothered to repair. The silence surrounding The Appointment is so complete that it has become part of its identity, a film defined by what cannot be uncovered. Fact: 4 Force of Darkness, 1985. A paranormal thriller steeped in demonic imagery, Force of Darkness is a film that should have capitalized on the fertile horror landscape of the mid-1980s. Instead, it became a production so overshadowed by discomfort and internal conflict that the cast and crew virtually erased it from their careers. Many members who worked on the film have refused to speak publicly about it, and those who do mention it offer only curt, unsettling remarks like, "That wasn't a pleasant experience," before changing the subject. Accounts from those close to the shoot suggest long, grueling days driven by a constantly shifting script. Creative disputes reportedly escalated into shouting matches, while budget constraints pushed the crew to cut corners in ways that left them uneasy. Some say the atmosphere around the set felt wrong, particularly during sequences involving occult themes. Whether this was fear, stress, or superstition remains unknown. Every attempt by genre historians to piece together the movie's making has failed. No meaningful behind-the-scenes footage exists, promotional materials are scarce, and unlike most 80 seconds horror films, Force of Darkness never received a detailed retrospective or collector's release. What lingers is a sense of something unresolved, a production that drained those who worked on it so deeply that silence became their only response. FACTO, Bloodbeat, Chungubek Parshipsum. Among the strangest regional horror films ever made, Bloodbeat occupies an even stranger place in film history. Almost no one involved wants to talk about it. Despite its notoriety for featuring a psychic samurai spirit haunting rural Wisconsin, the cast and crew have repeatedly declined interviews for decades. Even the film's director, Fabrice Ange Zafaratos, spoke only in fragmented, evasive comments before disappearing from the industry entirely. Those who researched the production discovered rumors of relentless tension on set, cultural clashes, creative disagreements, and long stretches where no one seemed to understand the director's vision. Cast members have described feeling emotionally drained and confused by the process, though their rare remarks never go into detail. One actor once stated, "We didn't know what movie we were making." I'm not sure he did either. The shoot reportedly relied heavily on local non-professionals, leading to unpredictable schedules and frequent miscommunication. Equipment failures were common, and multiple scenes were shot with almost no planning, resulting in frantic improvisation that left the crew exhausted. Perhaps the most haunting aspect is the film's lack of documentation. No behind-the-scenes photos, no production diaries, no interviews from the time of release. The film simply appeared, then everyone walked away from it. Bloodbeat remains one of the great enigmas of 80 seconds horror, a film defined as much by the silence around it as by its surreal content. VBSECT. Fact 6. The Being, 1983. A creature feature born out of the regional horror boom of the early 80 seconds, The Being is remembered today for its rubbery monster and camp charm, yet its production history is buried beneath a blanket of avoidance. Despite having recognizable actors like Martin Landau and Jose Ferrer, the cast has rarely, if ever, discussed their involvement. Attempts to secure commentary tracks or retrospective interviews have failed repeatedly, with representatives citing disinterest or unavailable scheduling, though insiders claim the refusals were far more deliberate. According to scattered accounts, the set was plagued by resource shortages and escalating tension as the shoot dragged on. Crew turnover was unusually high, with some technicians allegedly quitting after only a few days. The director, Jackie Kong, later spoke proudly about surviving the chaos of low-budget filmmaking. But even she sidestepped specifics about this production, often glossing over questions entirely. Local reports from the Idaho shooting locations mention multiple nights where filming stopped abruptly without explanation. Some residents recalled seeing production vehicles arrive and leave at odd hours, while cast members looked visibly exhausted or shaken. These rumors were never confirmed, but no one denied them either. What makes the being especially eerie is the near-total absence of surviving set photography. Despite multiple star actors, no promotional stills or candid shots have surfaced. It's as though the film passed through its own creators like a shadow, leaving almost nothing behind. Fact 7. The Dungeon Master, 1984. An anthology-style fantasy horror hybrid created by 7 different directors, The Dungeon Master should have benefited from its ambitious structure. Instead, it became a production so fractured that many contributors distanced themselves almost immediately after completion. Interviews about the film are rare, and when they do exist, they offer only cryptic comments. It was chaotic, we were all on different pages, or simply, I'd rather not revisit that one. Attempts to gather the various directors for retrospective commentary have consistently failed, with several refusing to participate. Behind the scenes, the project reportedly devolved into creative clashes. Each director shot their segment independently, resulting in wildly inconsistent tones and styles. Producers were dissatisfied, demanding rapid re-edits that left entire sequences truncated or restructured. Crew members described an atmosphere of exhaustion and confusion, with no clear leadership guiding the final product. Little documentation survives from the shoot, despite it being produced in the mid-1980 seconds, an era well documented for genre filmmaking. This absence has led some to speculate that the studio itself may have discarded materials due to embarrassment over the film's reception. While The Dungeon Master has since gained a cult following for its oddity, the people behind it continue to maintain a striking silence, leaving the true story of its creation locked behind closed doors. 1000. Fact 8. The Psychopath, 1973. Despite being produced during a boom in low-budget horror, The Psychopath has virtually no surviving accounts of its production. Directed by the enigmatic Walter Grauman, the film should have been a simple exploitation thriller, yet nearly every actor and crew member has avoided discussing it in the decades since. Researchers who've attempted to investigate the film's history often describe hitting an impenetrable wall. Cast members who are still traceable respond with terse messages or polite silence. Archival inquiries reveal missing production notes, lost call sheets, and no surviving photographs from set. One genre historian bluntly stated, "It's like the movie was made in a vacuum." Rumors suggest that the shoot suffered from severe mismanagement, long hours, sudden script rewrites, and an atmosphere many described off the record as toxic. Some claim the film was plagued by disputes between the producers and the director, leading to scenes being reshot without explanation. The final film feels strangely disjointed, as if multiple visions collided and no one wanted to take responsibility. Its uncomfortable tone has only fueled speculation that the real horrors occurred behind the camera. To this day, the silence surrounding The Psychopath is more chilling than anything in the film itself. Fact 9. The Dark, 1979. The Dark should have been a straightforward creature feature, a late 70 seconds sci-fi horror about a killer stalking Los Angeles. Instead, it became one of the most notoriously troubled productions of its era, and for decades, the cast and crew have consistently avoided revisiting what happened during its chaotic creation. Originally conceived as a supernatural ghost story, the film underwent a drastic transformation mid-shoot when producers suddenly demanded the villain become an alien that shoots laser beams from its eyes. This abrupt change triggered a cascade of problems: rewrites delivered overnight, effects teams scrambling, and actors confused about what movie they were actually in. Crew members have referred to the production only in the vaguest terms, usually describing it as difficult or the kind of job you try to forget. Several key participants declined interviews for later releases, and attempts to create a commentary track were abandoned because too many contributors said no. Even stranger, no substantial behind-the-scenes material survived. A studio archivist once stated that the production's photography folder was empty, an anomaly for a film shot in the late 70 seconds. Although the film eventually made it to theaters, The Dark remains a fractured, uneasy work, a product of a project that seemingly no one wanted to claim. Fact 10. The Child, 1977. A strange, dreamlike regional horror film, The Child has always carried an aura of something off, both on and off the screen. Shot in rural California with a mix of inexperienced crew and local actors, the production became notorious for its chaotic, disorganized environment. Yet rather than capitalize on that behind-the-scenes drama, as many indie filmmakers might, the cast and crew responded with near-total silence once filming wrapped. Reports from those who've tried to research the film describe repeated dead ends. Some cast members refused interviews outright, others responded politely but firmly that they don't discuss that project. Even the director, Robert Voskanian, spoke only in passing about the film in later years, avoiding specifics about production challenges. Rumors point to escalating tension on set, fueled by severe scheduling problems and unexpected financial setbacks. Some say equipment failures halted filming for days. Others suggest interpersonal conflicts grew so intense that multiple crew members left before completion. None of this was ever officially acknowledged, and no documentation survives to confirm any version of events. What remains is a film that feels disjointed yet deeply unsettling, a patchwork shaped as much by what was cut away as what was kept. The void of information surrounding The Child has only amplified its eerie reputation, transforming a low-budget oddity into one of horror cinema's quietest mysteries. Fact 11. The Unseen, 1980. The Unseen sits in a peculiar place in horror history, not obscure enough to be forgotten, yet avoided enough to feel cursed. While the film had notable talent involved, including Stephen Furst and Doug Barr, almost no one has spoken publicly about the production. Attempts to track interviews from the era lead to empty pages and dead ends. The script reportedly went through chaotic last-minute rewrites after creative disagreements fractured the team. The original director allegedly left early in the process, forcing a rapid reshuffle that created tension across every department. Crew members have hinted anonymously that the atmosphere on set was dark in a way that had nothing to do with the tone of the movie. Some claim scenes were shot in near-abandoned buildings with structural issues, contributing to a pervasive sense of unease. Others mention long stretches of filming without adequate lighting or proper planning, which caused frustration and exhaustion. Yet whenever journalists tried to document these stories years later, all involved parties declined or simply ignored requests. No commentary tracks, no retrospectives, no commemorative releases. It's as if The Unseen became exactly what its title suggests, something deliberately kept out of view, hidden by those who lived through it. Fact 12. The Outing, 1987. Though The Outing is often remembered as an offbeat killer genie horror film, its production history is far darker than its campy premise suggests. Cast members have repeatedly avoided discussing the shoot, and attempts to gather insights for DVD releases resulted in silence or polite refusals. Even the promotional cycle at the time felt strangely muted. No cast tours, no interviews, no behind-the-scenes articles in genre magazines. Whispers among collectors and historians hint at a troubled set. Several crew members reportedly walked off mid-production, citing disagreements that were never formally documented. Others alluded to intense conflicts between producers, leading to sudden script changes that blindsided the actors. One performer described the experience only once in a short quote buried in a regional newspaper, saying, "We stopped having fun very early. After that, everyone just wanted to get it over with." There are also persistent rumors of a major on-set injury that was quietly handled without insurance claims or public acknowledgement. The studio never confirmed it, and those who might have known more have consistently declined to comment. No still photographer was credited, which may explain why virtually no production photos exist. For a 1980 seconds horror film, this absence is startling. Even VHS-era B-movies typically left behind a trail of low-quality but valuable materials. The Outing, instead, feels like a film whose creators collectively chose to turn the page and never look back. Fact 13. Don't Open the Door, 1975. A low-budget Southern Gothic slasher, Don't Open the Door, should have been remembered as just another exploitation film of the 70 seconds, yet it became known for the eerie vacuum surrounding its production. No surviving behind-the-scenes documents exist. No interviews were conducted at release. Not a single crew member has ever provided substantial commentary. It is, for all intents and purposes, a film that materialized without witnesses. Researchers who attempted to investigate the film's history found empty archives and missing paperwork. Production notes reportedly could not be located. Several individuals credited in the film later denied involvement or said they had no memory of the shoot at all. One actress briefly acknowledged participating before abruptly cutting the conversation short, stating she preferred not to revisit that period. Local gossip from the Texas town where parts were filmed suggests frequent arguments, sudden personnel changes, and days where filming stopped without explanation. Some claim the director became increasingly withdrawn, refusing to speak to cast members except through intermediaries. Others describe a set atmosphere so tense that even casual observers felt unwelcome. The final film is disjointed, unsettling, and strangely hollow perhaps because whatever truly happened during production never made it into the official record. It stands as one of horror cinema's most enigmatic ghosts, a film that exists but whose creation has been effectively erased. Your Fact 14: Dark Night of the Scarecrow, 1981. Despite being one of the most respected made-for-TV horrors ever produced, Dark Night of the Scarecrow carries an unnerving reputation among its cast and crew. While critics praised its atmosphere and storytelling, the people who brought it to life avoided revisiting the experience. When asked about the production, several actors offered only vague acknowledgments, often responding with, "It was a tough shoot," and leaving it there. Even the director, Frank DeFelitta, sidestepped detailed discussion in later interviews, describing it merely as a project that came and went. Unverified accounts claim that the filming conditions were far harsher than expected: oppressive heat, malfunctioning equipment, and an atmosphere some crew members described as mean-spirited. One assistant recalled that no one wanted to stay on set after sundown, though officially the reason given was rural safety concerns. Yet the tone of their remarks hinted at something less practical, a sense that the Scarecrow itself became a symbol of the production's growing discomfort. No substantial making of materials were ever produced. Promotional content was minimal. The network aired the film and moved on, as if the production had drained everyone involved. Even decades later, attempts to gather a full cast commentary failed. Too many key participants declined. For a film celebrated by audiences, its creator's refusal to revisit it remains its most haunting legacy. FACTT, The Survivor, 1981. Among Australia's strangest horror productions, The Survivor stands out not for what happened on screen, but for the suffocating silence that followed once the cameras stopped rolling. Adapted from a James Herbert novel, the film should have been a straightforward supernatural thriller, yet nearly every major cast and crew member has refused to discuss their time working on it. Interviews from the early 80 seconds show actors dodging questions, shifting in their seats, or offering clipped responses like, "It was complicated," before the topic abruptly changed. Rumors circulated of a production plagued by tension, rewrites happening daily, arguments between studio executives and the director, and night shoots that reportedly left the crew shaken. One sound technician described the set as unnaturally quiet, as if even the equipment resisted capturing the atmosphere. No behind-the-scenes footage exists, no official set stills survived. Even Herbert himself distanced from the adaptation, calling it a project best left alone. Although the film received a modest release, everyone involved seemed eager to bury it, granting no retrospective interviews, refusing commentary tracks, and declining invitations for anniversary discussions. The result is a film suspended in a strange void, completed, released, but deliberately erased from its own creator's history. To this day, The Survivor feels like a message in a sealed envelope, delivered, seen, but never explained. Bonus film Deathbed, The Bed That Eats, 1977. Few horror films carry a mythology as bizarre or as strangely silent as Deathbed, The Bed That Eats. While its surreal premise has earned it a cult following in recent decades, nearly everyone involved in its creation has avoided discussing the production, leaving behind a haze of rumor, contradiction, and unanswered questions. The film was the brainchild of George Barry, a filmmaker who never made another feature. According to limited accounts, the entire production was shot with an extremely small crew, minimal resources, and almost no formal structure. Barry later admitted that he essentially worked in isolation, but when pressed about the experience, he deflected with vague responses like, "It was a long time ago," or "I don't remember much." Actors involved have rarely surfaced to talk about their roles. Several cannot be located today, and the few who have commented offered only brief, uncomfortable remarks about the demands of the shoot. One performer described the set as strange and quiet, saying that communication was so sparse that the cast often had no idea how their scenes fit into the larger story. The lack of documentation is astonishing. No behind-the-scenes photos, no production logs, no interviews from the time, no promotional tour. For years, the film circulated only through bootlegs, with many believing Barry had abandoned it. When a distributor eventually tracked him down decades later, he expressed genuine surprise that anyone cared, yet still declined to revisit the production in detail. His reluctance only deepened the mystery. Some say personal conflicts fractured the tiny crew. Others claim the production was halted for long stretches due to financial issues or emotional strain. None of these stories have ever been confirmed, and no one seems willing to settle the truth. Deathbed. The Bed That Eats endures not just as an oddity of underground horror, but as a cinematic ghost, a film whose very existence feels accidental and whose silence speaks louder than its strangest scenes. If you've made it this far, you've stepped into a corner of horror history that most people, including the filmmakers themselves, prefer to leave in the dark. But the silence surrounding these titles only makes them more disturbing. If there's a film you believe hides an untold story, leave it in the comments below. And if you'd like to keep exploring the shadows of lost, cursed, or forbidden cinema, hit subscribe. The darkness always has more to reveal.